Welcome back to Brief Recess. This is Under Oath. We're going to do a deep dive. We've got an incredible guest. On today's show, we have Dr. Leslie Dobson. She's a forensic clinical psychologist. She's worked with individuals in maximum security suffering from severe mental illnesses. She does forensic evaluations, assesses sexual abuse allegations, and focuses on the validity of post-injury emotional, cognitive, and behavioral functioning. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Dobson. I thought it would be great to have you on the show today to talk a bit about the Epstein files and what we've sort of seen happening with the case in America. I know that you have done a few of these interviews sort of talking about, is Epstein alive? What's happening with this autopsy? Mm-hmm. I would love to just sort of get into it with you. Mélissa and I talk about this a lot. So this is really an area of interest, especially as everyone is learning more and more about these files as we sort of dig into the actual documents.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion would be, I think I would even testify to this, that I opine to the fact that he is still alive.
Yeah. And I think what's so interesting, right? There are a lot of people on the internet who are saying that, but I think you're one of the few people who is drawing upon what I know from cross-examining and examining doctors and forensic techs. In court, you're really relying heavily upon your expertise in your area of practice. So I thought it would be cool if we could sort of go through it a bit today and talk about whether or not this report from his hanging, ruled suicide, what rings true to you, where you see the holes and errors in this case.
I can draw upon a little bit of his attempted suicide a few months prior as well.
Right. Okay.
So
All right, great. You know, I'm excited. Let's get into it.
We have to pick apart the trees, but we have to see the forest for the trees at the same time. And I think holding that duality is difficult for people. And that's why there's so much controversy around all this.
And that's oftentimes what we're doing in court, right? In a criminal trial, yes, we get the expert in on the really specific details. We're looking at the images. We're looking at the autopsy report. But we also have to look at the person. We have to look at the corpus of the evidence. We have to look at the circumstances. We can't just look at one specific detail, right? So
exactly.
Why don't we get started? Let's do this full trial style. Let's credential you as an expert. Tell us about who you are and your profession. Let's get right into it.
Oh, okay. A little voir dire here.
Yes.
Dr. Leslie Dobson, a real licensed psychologist, even though people on the internet don't believe it. No, I have a bachelor's.
They don't believe I'm a lawyer either, so it's fine.
God forbid we have personalities and do our jobs. I got a bachelor's degree in psychology. I have 2 master's degrees, one arguably regrettable in Freudian dream interpretation and psychoanalysis, but I got to travel the world to do it.
Yeah.
And then I have a doctorate in forensic psychology and a fellowship in high-risk sexual offenders.
Okay. So you really are the expert in this space then. I mean, this is really someone who has studied and is credentialed as an expert in this field.
Definitely. I've testified in over 50 trials. I've been deposed well over 60 times at this point. And I, both criminally and civilly, but I worked for the government for a long time, which gave me access to the nasty fuckers of this world. And then when there was a hit on my life, I decided to go into civil litigation and get out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Good for you. Yeah. To stay safe, it's really hard to be a badass expert and also not be alive. So
yeah, I can't carry my gun in there.
Yeah. Okay. So looking at the Epstein files, looking at the death of Epstein, the official ruling was suicide by hanging.
Right.
What is your first response to hearing that?
It doesn't make sense. The bone breaking does not line up with typical hangings by suicide. The way that it looked on his neck, how it was angled, is not how it should have been. It should have been angled upward, looking at the grid where he allegedly had hung himself. I've responded to hangings, and in state hospital systems, you don't take the person down. You do not immediately try to save them because they may be trying to kill you. It could be a trick. So you always wait for a second person to arrive before you save their life. It's really fucked up, I know, but your safety is more important than theirs.
Interesting. And so that's protocol.
Oh, it is protocol. You do not singularly break up a fight. You do not singularly do anything that has potential risk of violence to you.
And you would say that that's kind of like an industry standard, that everyone is on the same page about that.
Yes. I mean, that's the Department of State Hospital training.
Okay. Wow.
Okay.
That's incredible. And so
that's really interesting, actually. So if you are an employee at a prison or something, and you walk into a cell and you see the person, and as far as you can tell, the person is still alive because there's movement.
Right.
You are not permitted to cut that person down. You have to wait for your partner to come. So by the time that person comes,
right, that person might actually be dead.
Right.
And,
interesting.
If I break the glass and I get the cut scissors and I pull my alarm and the alarms are going off and I go in and cut him down, what if he wraps his legs around my neck and breaks my neck? There's violence every single day.
Sure.
Yeah,
right.
it could. That's right. It could be a trick. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't really think of that. But
it's sad we have to live in the defensive way, but they brutalize us as employees in the state hospital system every single day.
Wow.
Right.
So in this scenario, what happened? The guard did cut him down. The guard took him down.
Right. And it was high enough up that you would have seen a line, right? It would have had an upward trajectory. When you self-asphyxiate, you're going to be forward facing, and that's how it was described. And then the rope would be up behind him, or the torn towel. Now, the first time he tried it, it wasn't successful. I haven't seen pictures of the first time, but it was a similar description. And then the second time somebody would have come in, there would have been two people coming in. Oddly, the cameras glitched the first suicide attempt and the second. That's so strange, right? Mm-hmm. And so you would cut the rope and then you would immediately start CPR.
So what happened in this situation then with Jeffrey Epstein? Did they follow any of those protocols?
From what I read, they cut him down and he had already died. I don't know if I hadn't read anything about CPR, and there was no alteration to his rib cage or his muscles where you would usually break some ribs. You mess stuff up, you'd have some significant bruising with real CPR.
And before he allegedly committed suicide, there were issues with his body that were not present in the autopsy report, right?
Yeah, he had small testes. I'm kidding. The fake body had small testes.
Okay. So, Michael, control yourself. Michael.
She said the fake body.
Right. So, but do you think that, because I'll tell you, when I had heard that Epstein had died by suicide, my first inclination was, he didn't die by suicide. Somebody killed him. Right. That was, as opposed to me believing that he wasn't dead, that the whole thing was a hoax. I was like, he didn't kill himself. Somebody killed him.
Right.
So, but you're telling us that your belief is that he is not dead at all.
Yes. And not only from ripping apart the autopsy, talking to morticians, one of the doctors who's been doing this for 50 years and said how bizarre this is. Okay, that could lend to murder. Sure. But now we're looking at this massive Epstein network, an international network, pulling in the KGB and Israel and Norwegian assets. You don't think this guy had the power to know he was going to go to jail and then get out? I mean, the prison guard got $5,000 before they even knew he was going there. His estate won the $80 million Powerball a week after he went into prison. There's just too much information to say that he didn't have his wherewithal to just get out of prison.
Melissa and I are looking at each other like this is unbelievable. Yeah.
I was saying this to Michael earlier. I listened to an interview that you gave recently, and I think the thing about it is that we don't want to believe that any of this is true. Do you know what I'm saying? In the sense of listening to this idea that Epstein and his cronies, they were cannibalizing people, right? It's one of those things that you want to believe is so far-fetched that it couldn't possibly be true. Same thing with this idea that, he was so powerful that he knew all the right people in all the right places to like smuggle him out somehow.
Right.
It sounds like something that is made up. It sounds like something that you've seen on the big screen. Right. Because we've seen movies where somebody's going to do like a prison break and they fake their death and they cart the body out in the coffin of someone else. You know what I mean? We've seen those stories before.
Right.
But this idea that this is something similar-ish happened here, it feels so unbelievable that you want to believe that it's not true. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, I do. And I think it's hyper normalization. I think the dump of the data was purposeful and the amounts were purposeful. There are images that have been taken offline that were there. So I think they wanted to quickly shut everyone up and then bomb Iran and hope it went away. And, I do believe that we distract in politics.
And it's true. It's too convenient, right? I mean, every time we hear about a dump or about images or a really damning email, suddenly it's taken down off of the website. And then
there's some other calamity elsewhere that happens to sort of, they're trying to bait and switch us, right? Like, oh, look at this other shiny thing.
Yes.
Don't focus on this thing.
Right. It makes too much sense often, right? And I think that I know that recently there have been some subpoenas that have gone out for people to testify for guards that were there the night of this alleged suicide. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Correct. So the House Oversight Committee has subpoenaed at least one of the guards who was there that night. And in particular, she has received payments from the Epstein estate in amounts of $5,000.
That is not that much money
in
my mind. I'm like, that is not enough to cover up.
It feels like that's not enough money for this person to risk
all of this.
Oh, right. $5,000.
You're dealing with really dangerous people.
Do a little overtime, you'll get $5,000, right? Like it just feels...
Right. So then what was the money for? How many times did she get it?
Right.
Are there multiple accounts? Do we know? She's a good person to question.
And $5,000 is usually the amount that doesn't flag too much attention in bank statements. Oftentimes in cases I've dealt with, it's usually you want to, like people are keeping transfers on the smaller side because it doesn't trigger any sort of IRS scrutiny.
I thought it was under 10,000.
Yeah.
Like 9,000.
People try and keep it, like on the lower scale.
Right.
I mean, 10,000 is the limit to go to Mexico, but...
Not you telling us how to do it. Not,
right.
Not the how-to guide.
So do we believe as far as this particular prison guard that it was only a one-time $5,000 payment? And have they been able to explain why did she get that $5,000 at all?
She hasn't spoken to it. She hasn't explained. They haven't explained, but it's in his financial records that were exposed, and Congress plans to ask about it.
Okay.
And then he also purchased 2 ambulances shortly before. And then there's another prison guard who sent an email that's in the files, and the FBI referenced it. I think he used 4chan or Discord to state that they moved a body in at midnight, right when the cameras cut out.
I saw about that. Yeah. So we have these little dribbly bits of evidence that are sort of like dropping in here and there. What do you think happened? Like, what is your hypothesis?
I would just assume he walked out with his friends and they brought in another body. And that's why we have 3 doctors who did the autopsy with varying information. And now he's, had plastic surgery, changed his face, and living in Russia.
It's unbelievable. That's crazy.
I mean, again, it just sounds like one of those things that you don't want to believe is true because it sounds like something that you would see in a movie.
But then when you lay the evidence out,
right,
it does make a little too much sense, right? I mean, this is an extremely powerful person involved with other really powerful people who is now in a relatively low security prison situation. I mean, it does kind of make sense.
I mean, when Charlie Sheen came into LA County Jail, he was on a 1-to-1. It's fucking Charlie Sheen. Like, we could not take our eyes off him.
Right.
You don't leave someone like Jeffrey Epstein alone for a second. You have a 1-to-1 eyes on. You're writing on a little log all your 15-minute check-ins. You're documenting everything. that wasn't happening. That's completely unimaginable.
And he was technically classified as someone who was supposed to be on suicide watch.
Because he had just tried.
I was going to say, was he on suicide watch before the previous attempt or once that attempt? It was after that.
It was after that.
After that. Okay.
Months prior. We could say, he had a little practice, he got better at it and succeeded, but it doesn't look like an actual suicide to the doctors who for 50 years haven't been investigating hangings and dead bodies.
There's been a lot of talk in the Epstein files about cannibalism and people eating people. And I know that you've worked on cases that involve cannibalism in the past. Could you talk a little bit about those cases and sort of your experience and how that applies here?
Sure. I've had patients, they've all had mental illness, severe mental illness from schizophrenia ranging to, if you want to say psychopathy is a mental illness, we would say they had antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. And then we would give them the psychopathy inventory. They would rank high. And then that's how we would determine it because it's not a diagnosis. But between both of those individuals, I have come across many in the state hospital system, in jails and prisons, and especially at Coalinga State Hospital. That's where we hold the sexually violent predators in California, who have eaten people for a variety of reasons. I mean, I think, so there's kind of three categories of cannibalism. It would be the survival, airplane crash, we got to eat people to survive.
Right, the yellow jackets.
Right. Right. Oh, God, that freaked me out more than meeting them in real life. But that, and then we have the ritualistic, satanic, ritualistic, elite.
And we see that a lot in pop culture. We see that on TV. We see that in movies. Right.
Right. And then, what is cannibalism? Is drinking blood under that category? We don't really have a real definition for what it is. Is it, if you cook it, does it count? But then you have the more psychotic.
Yes. Answer yes. Yes, it counts.
If you cook a person, does it count as? Yeah. Of course. What? Why is that? I don't even understand why that's a question. I'm sorry.
The lawyer should have asked that.
Sorry, that's just for everyone watching. Yes, it counts.
I'm like very stuck on this. I can't believe that that's a question.
Who asked that question? Get them in the studio immediately.
People ask me these questions all the time.
You know what? I cooked it. It don't count. Oh yeah, that's that.
It just sounds so wild, right? That people are asking questions like that.
It's easier to be like, y'all are crazy.
Yeah.
Discredit the person giving you the information because the information is so ridiculous.
Wild, right.
But it's one of these things that that's happened throughout history, right? We've always had people discrediting and saying that you're crazy for saying that. And then 50 years later, everyone's like, no, they were right.
Right.
Imprison Galileo.
Mm-hmm.
And I fully grasp that there are targeted smear campaigns and Hillary Clinton and Pizzagate, nobody kind of believed it. And maybe they used that, as a political attack. But there's also very real elite individuals and satanic rituals that drink blood and kill children on purpose and eat parts of their body. That's
like a very real thing happening in America.
Well, largely in other countries. I didn't think we'd hear about it so much in the Epstein files. Mm-hmm. But for thousands of years, they've been doing this in these rituals and these, private clubs, you could say. I don't know.
This is too crazy. This is too crazy.
But I'm wondering what is the purpose, right? Like why is this the thing, right? You have this very elite group of people. There's this club and I always wonder, like, where is someone in life where they decide that that's the thing that I'm going to do to get you to join my club? And then the other person is like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that.
Whatever happened to annual dues? Right. Whatever happened to a membership fee? Yeah. Whatever happened to tithing?
Well, but seriously, I am curious, like, what is the purpose of, I think, let's say that I choose to accept this notion of a ritual. Okay. I may disagree, but I accept that that's what it is. But this idea of belonging to a, like this elite club or this elite group of people, what is, based on what you know, what is the reasoning behind this? Why would somebody think that that's what you need to do?
I think with the Epstein case, and this is different than a lot of the cannibals that I've met. But with the Epstein case, youth and life longevity were a big thing, right? He was trying to make the perfect baby, adrenochrome,
right, these,
all this stuff.
Designer babies were a big
the designer babies, right? But I think, so you've got the longevity, but then I think you have to really think about the spirituality and the ritualistic nature of people, and that human sacrifice has been a thing throughout the history of humans. And when you reach that group or that level, that sacrificial moment is going to bring you to that next level of religiosity, in my mind, delusion. But they believe it.
And so as you're sort of looking at the Epstein case, at the everything that happened in the prison where he was being held, and now this autopsy report, what really stands out to you? Is there anything else in that autopsy report where you're like, this is totally something that people need to be talking about that they're not picking up on?
His prostate was there in the body, but in the files, they said his prostate was removed. They said his urethra was on one side of the tip of his penis, oddly placed, and his penis was egg-shaped. That wasn't noted in the autopsy of the body that they determined was his. There are tattoos, and people argue saying he had stick-on fake tattoos. He did. He also had real tattoos that weren't noted in the autopsy. And then we have the more conspiracy, not that we're already in it, but of his nose changing, his eye shape changing, his lips, his ears. I mean, people have gone to town comparing his earlobes. I don't know if your ears change when you die, but
there's a photo of him after his death where it almost looks like he's smirking. It looks like a faked photo of him in the cell.
I think there's a lot of AI.
Yeah.
There's definitely AI, and then we've got Palm Beach Pete, who's getting a lot of attention lately, who looks just like him.
Yeah, there's this guy in Palm Beach who's been driving around in a convertible, and he looks exactly like Jeffrey Epstein. And everyone sees him and is freaking out. It looks just like him. And
wow, our producer just showed it. Wow. Okay, well...
He's using it to his benefit.
Yeah. So where do you see all this heading, right? Like we have more questions than answers when it comes to the files. Will there be some sort of accountability in this case? Because it's so clear this administration wants this shut down. They don't want to talk about it. They want everyone to move on. And every time they do that, everyone just starts looking at it closer.
Right.
Giving it more attention.
Yeah. And then I think also asking why in other countries, people are going to jail. They are losing their jobs,
Right.
What's his name got unprinced or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So it's...
we've removed him from...
Right. So there are people who are feeling the repercussions of just having known this man, whereas in this country, nothing.
Yeah.
It feels like nothing is happening.
I think there's actually a lot more happening than people know about. The UK is now demanding unredacted files so that they can investigate inmate Andrew. So that will move forward. Let's see if they get the files. Let's see if they get pushed back.
Right.
But other countries may need to help us out in that regard and start trying to obtain the information themselves. But I think... and tell me if I'm wrong because I'm not the lawyer, but I think the key is building a RICO. I think we've got to start from the bottom up. We have doctors who have a lot of information that are still practicing in Ohio, at UCLA, Princeton, Stanford. We have dentists. We have groundskeepers. We have chefs.
Columbia University Medical Center, there was someone who was affiliated with Epstein and the women that he abused. And she was a doctor who would treat the women, right? I mean, this has been a long-standing, intricate network of professionals, business people who are all a part of this network. It's not just one person.
Right. It's not just him and just Ghislaine.
Ghislaine,
Right.
So if I think it was I think it was stupid to depose the Clintons.
Well, I don't think they intended to depose the Clintons. I think they said, oh, we're going to depose them thinking that they were going to say no. And then Hillary Clinton snapped off her press-on nails and took off her earrings and ho-stomped right into fucking
and she yoked up Bill and was like, listen.
Yeah, she said, buckle up, Buttercup. Like, I don't think people thought that they were going to testify.
Did you listen to it?
I did. And after they agreed to testify, we've got a clip of Trump being like, oh, I always liked and respected Bill. I thought he was a nice guy. It was like right after he was like, you better testify. And then they asked him after Bill said yes. He was like, he's always been such a nice guy to me.
He's a strong president.
I mean, Hillary, she showed that she was like a rock star, telling them that they were all idiots and how to lawyer, you want to set up a pattern, you want to corner me, let me help you out.
You pitched the right bitch,
Right. But then Bill, I mean, utterly pointless until the moment he saw the pictures.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And then the admiration for those pictures told the world he's been on that island and he had some orgasms there.
He was a little bit too excited to do a walk down memory lane.
Well, the other thing was
an island.
What I thought was super interesting about this, because I watched it, was his attorney was sitting next to him, and at one point she grabbed the pictures.
She was like,
enough.
No,
like,
give me that.
But it was more like, give this to me. You know what I mean? It was more like that. It was more like, you stupid idiot.
Let's keep this. You got to keep these guys. You got to keep these photos away from him. He he loves them too much. Yeah.
I wonder, with the work that you do, it's a very heavy emotional lift. How do you take care of yourself? Because I feel like, so one of the things I'll say is that I have, at one point or another, started and stopped to look at the Epstein files that I see online. And it is overwhelming. It is overwhelming for me. And similarly, I was listening to this interview that you gave. And again, I had to stop. I picked it up again, but I had to stop because it's overwhelming. And I just wonder, you are doing this work, this really hard, necessary work, because somebody needs to tell us what's happening.
Right.
How do you take care of yourself? How do you have the appetite for this?
I eat a lot of beef jerky. No, my husband's a psychologist. I do Pilates a lot. I love Pilates. I think it's better than meditation. Having to hold yourself in the air and not die is phenomenal to get out of your head. But I've had great mentors and I've had great training, and I've learned over time to leave work where work should lay. And I have active cases now. I have 2 reports that are going to trial, and I have to finish them this week. So I have my own distractions, even though they're still dark. They're still they're rape cases. They're difficult cases. But we win. I win all the time. Yeah. I win settlements for people. I bring justice to victims. I close schools. I take money from the Catholic Church. I close dioceses. I put people behind bars. And every moment of that erases the trauma I endured to get there. And every child I save, I just did a Hague International case, a child abduction case. So now I'm working all around the world. And 99% of those cases fail. The kids get sent back to the violent parent. I won. Wow. We won. I got heard well enough. I tested everyone psychologically well enough to explain. And that, to me, those wins make it worth it.
Sure. No, it's just, I just can't imagine it. And I don't know. I feel like I want to say thank you, because it just feels like really, really difficult, constantly like uphill work.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of pushback on the internet for your videos or from other experts even? Because I get that sometimes.
Not from other experts. Independent journalists do like to write hit pieces on me, and like the Wall Street Journal, things like that. But other experts, we're in line with how we view this and we support each other. But I get a lot of death threats, and those aren't from the experts. Those are just from people. So, I have a dog sent from Serbia who speaks German. I conceal and carry. I have people that watch me. So I have to take precautions.
Right.
So in your opinion, as you're sort of looking at the overall Epstein situation, and I I just want to ask, like, it sounds like you have a lot of experience with these types of systematized abduction of children. What are you seeing here in this case, right? As an expert in this area of practice, like, what are you really seeing as you observe the Epstein situation from the outside?
I'm seeing the world drastically trying to normalize the age of consent, to minimize pedophilia, and to minimize the severity of child trafficking across the world. And, you know, a lot of people hate on Tim Tebow. I don't know much about him, but his organization has done a phenomenal job really pointing out trafficking and the dangers of it. They put money behind it. The statistics are really solid. You know, if you were to Google it, you might see 100,000 kids missing in America a year. I'd say it's well over 300,000. Where the fuck are they all going?
Yeah.
You know, I've had people sell their children. I mean, that's how a lot got to Epstein, was they sold their child for the day. A lot with the hope of becoming famous, you know, why people went to the Playboy Mansion and then got trafficked. But a lot of parents, you know, the most likely person to traffic a child is the biological father. Mm-hmm. And trafficking doesn't mean gone for good. It could just mean sell for an hour, right? We have to see, we also have to understand what this term trafficking means.
Right. A lot of people think it's some sort of like
the person has disappeared somehow, right? Yeah.
Which is sometimes the case.
Sure.
Yeah, and these girls had babies. We don't know where the babies went, but a lot of the survivors who still have not been interviewed by Pam Bondi or the DOJ have a lot to say, and they all have open investigations. And that's, you know, that's the movement we're not seeing. That's the movement we can't see because they are actively going through these cases.
Two things I want to ask you. So, have you had an opportunity to speak to Epstein victims and to hear what they say and to document what they say?
Yes, many.
Okay. And what happens with that information? Are you just holding on to it, or is there a plan? Because I think that's one of the things that I think about quite a bit. And I've talked about this with some friends, but like, I feel like we're not hearing enough from victims. And is that because they want to protect themselves, or are they being stifled?
They're terrified of being sued for billions of dollars because we're talking about billionaires coming together with billionaires. Mm-hmm. And also they have open investigations going on. And so they can't tamper with the investigations. So when I do talk to them, I get limited information. Of course, it's not going to harm any of their cases. But I text a lot of Congress, and I've been able to get a lot of their cell phone numbers, and I will just rage text them what to do.
I feel like a lot of people on the internet would like to rage text Congress.
Do you get responses from them at all? Is anybody responding to you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think out here in California, Robert Garcia has been incredible.
He's been great.
Eric Swalwell's been incredible with this. You know, Eric Swalwell voted to have the congressional, the sexual harassment stuff exposed when so many people voted against that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was very strange to me. Like, a ton of women voted against having congressional sexual harassment allegations exposed.
I saw that. That was unbelievable. And then it was like one of those things where it was the next day, no one was talking about it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they made it go away. And this is sort of my last question for you. And I don't even know if you could really answer this question, but a few minutes ago, you said something about how, you know, we're trying to sort of normalize pedophilia and sort of have it sort of become more acceptable. Why do you think that we are this way? Because when I think about it, immediately I am repulsed, and I'm like, oh, that person belongs under the jail. Like, get rid of this person forever.
Right.
Why do you think that there is this tendency to either go easy on these people? Because it seems like if there was something we should all rally around, is the protection of children, right? People who are innocent, you know, they're babies, they're kids. Why do you think that we have such a hard time in throwing down the gauntlet and saying absolutely not?
Because you can only sell drugs once, but you can sell a child's body over and over again.
So
that's
money.
In an email in the files.
Yeah. So it's
money.
It's money.
It's money.
It's not you and I, right? We're not I don't know if you guys are billionaires. I'm not, but I don't own giant corporations. I didn't start Victoria's Secret. It's them. It's Les Wexner.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
On that note.
Yeah, it was really lighthearted.
Thank you for coming on. Do you have anything you want to plug? Anything you want to promote? I know you have a book out. Do you want to maybe mention that?
Oh, it's kind of more like a pamphlet, but I did write a small book on setting boundaries with your friends. Maybe you should set boundaries with the Epstein files. Yeah,
anything you want to plug? And where can we find you on the internet?
The book's called The Friend Cleanse, if anyone really does want to set boundaries with their friends, toxic friends. But on Instagram and TikTok, if I'm not violated because of Epstein. And then my website, it's good to check my website. I'm going to be co-producing several television shows and hopefully getting my own show soon. And so, just check back and see what's happening. But also I encourage everyone to vote, and you can go on my website and you can see where I have a link to the Courage candidates. And those are candidates that are running for Congress who have a fucking backbone.
Great. That's great. We love that.
We love that.
I would love to check that out. Thank you for calling that to our attention. All right. Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you so much. Really, this was really interesting.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Leslie. Thanks. Take care.